So our next session is called Tapad, puts IPG's Ansible in the hot seat. Take your whatever hot seat that you like. Ansible in the hot seat on Multiscreen. This is led by Moderator Are Traasdahl, founder and CEO of Tapad, and JiYoung Kim, SVP-creative solutions and strategy, IPG Mobile. Can we have mics on, please?
It's on? There we go. Great. Before we go into the questions, we're very excited to have G on the stage here with us. Before we go in, we just want to set the stage a little bit around multi-screen and cross-platforms. A lot of talk about that out in the industry. So I just want to set a little bit of the stage first, and then we'll dive in and ask G all the complicated questions. So if you look at what's really on the consumer behavior, I find this first stat astonishing, that consumers are switching between screens 27 times every hour. So you go from your phone to your tablet, to your computer, phone, tablet, computer, and at the same time, you're in front of the television. So let's see, how do I go back? So a normal day for most consumers are like this, and even more complicated. You wake up in the morning, you're in front of your TV, and throughout the entire day, you're switching between screens. But if you're looking at that from an advertiser perspective, it creates some real challenges. Because if you go to, let's say, CNN from 5 different devices, you look like you're 5 different people. So with that, you can't do any retargeting cross-screen. It's very hard to do frequency capping, message sequencing. It's hard to measure that somebody has seen an ad on a phone, but they actually took an action on a computer. So in order to solve some of those issues, the way that we've been attacking it from the Tapad side is through what we call this device graph. And this device graph say with a very high probability that multiple consumers belong to the same, or multiple devices belong to the same consumer. It's built by processing billions and billions of data points together, looked at first-party logged-in data and all kinds of other data points, and then you know that with a high probability, it's the same consumer on multiple devices. So privacy is important there as well. We'll skip to that point. There are about 160. So is this real? Is this something that's actually happening? So we're doing this for about 160 of the largest brands in the US now, running about 200 to 300 campaigns simultaneously that are multi-screen. But let's, this skipper is a little slow. All right, let's then go into asking G instead, because she has been one of the very early proponents for understanding how mobile fits into the entire holistic picture of multi-screen. She's won all kinds of prizes from in Cannes, from IIB Mix, and we're very excited to have her on stage. She's seen this from the advertising side, but she's also seen it from the rest of the consumer experience. So first question is really just you as a consumer. If you think about your own behavior, how has that changed in the last 3-4 years?
Well, I have more choices now, so we all directly feel the change from going to an exposure media behavior to a more interactive one. So those of you with phones and iPads, I don't know the last time I actually paid attention to a commercial, much less a TV show that I wasn't interested in. So that's certainly changed. That also means there's a lot of constant background noise in our lives. And the way I think the way the latest stats describe it is, despite the reduced amount of attention we dedicate to media these days, the actual time we're spending is bigger than ever. We're spending more time every year with media than we ever did. So you could argue that it's actually more important than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm. If you take that kind of change in consumer behavior and then put yourself in the seat of an CMO, and we've done big campaigns for the biggest brands out there, Kia and Intel, and if you think about the CMOs, and they're looking at these consumers jumping between screens, and then they're trying to get an agency and to actually execute on all of this. And a lot of agencies and the clients are organized in silos still. Plus you have the creative side and you have the media buying side of an agency, and then you have 2,000 vendors trying to reach the same consumer. If you're a CMO, what do you make? Is it possible to make any sense of this industry?
No, it's very hard. It's incredibly hard. Think about how long you and I have been doing mobile. We thought it was going to happen in a couple of years, and it's still growing. It's still not where we thought it was going to be. Nowhere close, right? And then think about how many agencies you meet with on behalf of one brand conversation, right? Yep. And it's symptomatic of how we are being challenged to evolve with digital. Publishers are being challenged to evolve with digital. So you are no longer in the business of television, print, online, and mobile anymore, right? You're in the business of media. You're in the business of content. The same thing is happening on the agency side. We are no longer, if you look in the right spots, hopefully, we are no longer structured as offline, online, mobile, digital, TV. We're just not structured that way. We're going through that phase, painful phase right now where everybody, in terms of skills and competencies, we're on top of each other's grill. And that is exactly how media has evolved. If you look at mobile is on top of, near, with all other media you can think of, and that's structurally how we're moving as an industry. And finally, on the client side is the most painful because you're no longer dealing about people who can have the luxury of being concerned with just media, with just advertising. They have an entire business to run. And some of the best clients we work with do take it upon themselves to break down those silos. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's follow up on that. So now we know that the consumers are switching between screens. We know that the challenge is organizationally to execute on some of these things. But let's get practical. Mm-hmm. So if you are to advise something for your advertisers, both from media side and from the creative side, mm-hmm. So what are the options there? How do you think about this problem?
Sure. So a colleague of mine and I were talking about it this morning, actually. He's on a later panel today. And you and I have spoken about this. With digital and with mobile, there's a lot of money being poured in and invested, exciting money being poured into ad tech, right? Our ability to use technology to get programmatic, to get efficient, to get a lot better about targeting the right person at the right time, improving significantly, right? Leaps and bounds. It's the most exciting thing that's happened to my career. What we haven't done a great job of is including the creative side of the house, because targeting and getting in front of the right person is just one part of the equation. What we do afterwards is the other half that we haven't done a lot of work in. So in looking at, for example, my team and kind of the average kind of lifestyle and partying kind of like youngsters that they are, the analogy I like to dip into is dating, right? If the profile of what I was looking for was 99% of the success and fail criteria, my Match.com and eHarmony history should have been off the charts, okay? But it's not. Think about what you remember. So this guy is like a 99% match. You go to dinner, you sit down, and what you remember is, he was cute, right? That's the creative. That's the creative in the equation. You can only do so much getting in front of the right person. Saying the right things and carrying that experience through across screens, that's really kind of where the second half needs to come in.
Keeping the dating analogy, how do you measure?
How do you measure? The cuteness?
No, everything else as well.
Just cuteness? I measure it by how long he's memorable, but my boyfriend's going to kill me.
So obviously it's challenging to measure in one platform, take it back to actually advertising. But it's hard enough to measure in one platform that somebody saw an ad or clicked on it, engaged, and then they came deeper and deeper. But if you're adding in multiscreen and people are seeing an ad on the phone on day 1, and then a tablet on day 3, and then on a computer on day 5, and is it possible to start kind of getting some insight into measuring all of this?
I think you can definitely get a better sense of what that human is. So you alluded to a great point about we're moving away from going to from measuring screen performance or channel performance to a combination of things, right? So with mobile especially, one of the reasons we glommed on to cross-screen was this was a great way for us to prove that interactions happen in a certain sequence, and mobile tends to play this role depending on the brand, and therefore this is kind of the dimension of the person that we're dealing with. This person doesn't like to talk to salespeople, for example. They like to do their research. Sometimes they do it on the go, but that's not the moment of maximum impact you're going for. With some brands, it's right in front of the product aisle. With other brands, is in front of their TV when they're doing a second screen activity. Those dimensions are finally coming together so that we can start trying to profile a person's whole day, rather than mobile should be an in-store utility, you know, which is not the sexiest thing I've heard. Powerful, but not sexy.
The interesting, and I think mobile also kind of evolved from being advertising where you click and install an application on the phone. So some of the problems in mobile advertising come from that. But obviously mobile has a much bigger role, and some of this data that we have developed together show that consumers are using mobile much more upper funnel and then converting on a different platform, which is interesting. And if you take that into then how do you create real kind of cross-screen consumer experiences? So advertising is one component of that, but if I go to Kia on my computer and I find a red one, and then when I come back on my phone later, the consumer experience should continue somehow, not break every time you jump between screens. Is there any kind of movement or thinking around how to do that?
There is. You guys are making some headway. So we've been talking about that for the last few months. This very simple common sense idea that if a consumer was living in California and looked for a cute coupe to drive around during weekends, and they're doing a lot of like what we call in-market research around these outdoorsy, sportsy cars. When they click on a particular auto model, don't show them the minivan. Show them that class of vehicles they were interested in. And I think we finally have the tools to do that. We're just not doing it as much. But to turn the tables on you have these conversations with agencies all the time, right?
I was waiting for how long it's going to take for you to actually start asking me questions instead.
I'm trying to behave. So you have 30 million conversations with, I have no idea how many agencies. I know you cheat on me constantly. But what is frustrating to you? What is it about the power of cross-screen that you feel you're not getting across fast enough, or you're not raising enough awareness around?
Well, I think it comes back to a little bit of this way the industry is structured in terms of silos. So a lot of the brands themselves are organized in silos, and the measurements are in silos. And the agencies have really moved fast towards getting rid of some of those silos, but they're still there. And to really kind of start with the consumer first, start with, I'm going to reach this consumer, no matter if it's doing mobile video on second one or online video the day after, and then tablets on day 3. If you start organizing this around the consumer versus organizing it around the platform, then I think a lot of it will change. But I think that still is the major pain point around multi-screen is the way the industry is structured.
And who decides this is important?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
It's great. So last question, and I think we're starting to run out of time, but you've also started to think about how does this work for off-platform or offline purchases. So obviously when you're traveling around, you're not walking around with your phone or with your computer or your tablet in your stores and those type of environments. You're carrying your phone around. Any kind of advanced thinking on I know it is, so on the IPG side around how do you kind of bridge that gap between online and the purchases of products in a physical store?
Yeah. So place-based attribution is one of our favorite things and it's been kind of an area of focus and interest most of this year. To that point, especially with all the heightened awareness of mobile being used in a purchase moment, right? So think about like standing in front of a package, your product package example. It might be 5 seconds that somebody is staring at your product, but those 5 seconds arguably just as valuable as a 30-second TV spot, right? So as part of that effort, we know that there's a lot of things that are complicated about attributing our digital investments to a purchase, but we know we can get close enough, as an example, a store visit. So we know we can use things like GPS, Wi-Fi, more advanced, slightly less privacy compliant, soon will be privacy compliant technologies to get track all the way through to standing in a certain aisle. So that's an area that we love. I know you guys have been working on that for a while. We have a couple of solutions that I believe we've tested out with you on historic location-based targeting, right? To get a view through. Mm-hmm.
One question. Does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask? Nope? Okay, well, before you go, let me just share with you, we have a nice display by HP, which is actually sponsoring your lunch today. And we'd like you to remember to visit the HP Office Jet Pro X Photo Experience and get a free souvenir photo from the world's fastest desktop printer. It prints 70 pages a minute and is up to half the cost of laser. The Office Jet Pro X, it's so fast it makes New York feel slow. Please let's give a warm round of applause for our last two speakers before lunch. And